15 ways to heal depression and anxiety. I'm an advanced intuitive and a mystic and a doctor of behavioral health, and I've been working with people for over 25 years. 15 ways to overcome depression and anxiety gives a full spectrum and comprehensive ways to overcome depression and anxiety and how to care for yourself beyond Western medicine. The Western culture promotes materialism and exterior satisfaction, which just doesn't work for so many people. Plus, depression and anxiety are mostly treated with a pill or pills, and the origin is often never looked into. The holistic way to deal with depression and anxiety are basic and part of the cultural paradigm shift in recognizing modern Western life is missing something. So this is going to offer you insights into long-term sustained change. Here's an image of the areas I will cover in this video. This is the full circle of self-care that we need as human beings for our wellness and happiness. Each of the areas will be explained briefly because there is a subsequent video that goes into detail on each of the items. Before we get started with all the different methods to help with depression and anxiety, I'm going to separate out the 5 different kinds of depression, and these different areas can also trigger anxiety, and they're important because they will help you understand where your depression originates from and give you different ideas for how to take care of depression and anxiety from a different perspective. Living with someone with a diagnosis who is ill or going to die can result in depression, and this is a normal response to that situation. It's also normal when there is loss to feel deeply affected by the loss, which can be to a person, to a loss of a group, to a place, or even a situation. Number 2 is physical trauma, head trauma, and emotional trauma, including neglect and abuse, and witnessing trauma and experiencing trauma. Trauma is a huge contributor to depression and anxiety and other illnesses, which is often left undiscovered, uninquired about by the medical or mental health profession, and therefore minimized and untreated. Often the origin of depression isn't even realized by the person who's experienced it because they just lived through a life event or a series of life events, and they were expected to carry on, especially for children and teens. The trauma can be from childhood or as an adult, and it changes our physiology and how it works, and that change remains unless there is an intervention or connection in a way that is loving and supportive for that person that changes their whole internal self. And the third kind of depression occurs from our modern life. There's a lack of information in the Western model about looking at how the mind, body, emotions, and spirit function for our wellness, for both anxiety and depression. Another kind of depression occurs with a physical health diagnosis. This is very pervasive. So, for example, someone who has heart disease, thyroid disease, cancer, will also have depression because they happen together. And the 5th kind of depression occurs from seasonal affectiveness disorder, which is caused from weather, which usually is considered too much gloominess, which can be rain or snow, and no sun for a long period of time. And there's also a seasonal affectiveness disorder for people who live in the desert, where I live, which is caused from the relentlessness of sun and intense heat day after day, week after week, month after month. Here are the 5 kinds of depression I just covered, and although I'm specifying depression, anxiety is also part of the results from all of the reasons for depression. So anxiety and depression can occur from challenging situations, from trauma, from modern life, Anxiety sometimes occurs from physical health diagnosis and definitely with depression. And also, depression occurs with seasonal issues of too much gloominess and then also relentless heat. And now we're going to look at the full circle of methods that help to heal anxiety and depression. A very important part of our healing is dealing with trauma. And depression and anxiety can be the result of past trauma. And often people don't recognize they even have had trauma, and they don't realize that the experiences and influences every decision they make. A trauma can be a one-time big incident or a series of smaller incidents. Trauma affects us in our thoughts and our emotions. It goes inside our physical body and can manifest as a physical illness. It also affects our spirit and our etheric body. This is an extra emphasis on healing trauma because it does contribute to physical illness. Social support. Social support and connection is critical for our wellness. This means live interaction with people. And although through the internet we can develop interesting relationships and connections, we have exchanges that occur through physical presence that cannot occur through an internet connection. We're social beings, and knowing people also over time is very meaningful for us. The next on the list is exercise, and it doesn't have to be a marathon. It can be walking out the front door for 20 to 30 minutes, 3 to 5 times a week. Another very important aspect for human beings is our relationship with nature, which is part of our relationship with ourselves. The Japanese have done research on forest therapy, and it shows that there's a sense of relaxation and being present in the moment, which is also part of releasing burdens and thinking about the future and being anxious. Meditation is another aspect that contributes to our wellness, and by the images they represent, there are many different kinds of meditation, so we don't want to limit the concept of it, but it helps us center and connect in a different way and shift out of ordinary consciousness. Meditation is defined as a synchronization of our heart rate, our breath, and our brain waves. And it helps us shift out of ordinary consciousness. And one thing we know about our modern world is that our normal consciousness in it is not serving us, and it's not helping us access tools that help us exceed and excel with creativity, insight, restoration, healing. So meditation is one of those aspects that helps us to claim and engage in ways that are part of that healing process. Another important aspect of our wellness that helps to eliminate depression and anxiety is going beyond the standard American diet and also attending to nutrition. So the standard American diet is basically fast foods, high salt content, high fat content, and not healthy fats, lack of nutrition, and highly processed food. Often people don't realize how their food intake affects them because they're influenced by commercials and advertising. So they think they're eating well, but they're really not. For people with depression and anxiety, having regular meals at regular times helps to balance the system, and not skipping meals contributes to keeping the system stabilized without the disruption of missing nourishment. And when people miss nourishment, it creates an even deeper or further sensitivity to depression and anxiety because of that depletion. And that means minimizing or deleting entirely soda, fast foods, sugars, excess salts and oils, excess caffeine, and processed foods. Here's another key to healing depression and anxiety related to our food intake. We know there is a direct relationship with the health of our gut, stomach, intestines, our digestion, and absorption with our mental health. We can choose foods that have enzymes that aid our digestive health or foods that deplete it, as previously discussed in the standard American diet. Adding fermented foods that have enzymes help us digest and absorb nutrients and aid our outlook, improve our mood, and diminish depression and anxiety. Music is a very powerful tool for shifting out of our normal state of awareness. It's very healing, has many aspects to it, and culturally we haven't yet tapped into this resource. However, I have music that is healing, helps with meditation, helps diminish and alleviate anxiety and depression, helps with pain management and relaxation, and insight and creativity development. We know that Albert Einstein used music to shift out of ordinary consciousness. This wasn't to solve problems by listening to music, but that the music opened up spaciousness for being present in the moment. And in that opening is how other ideas and relaxation and inspiration occurs. Another aspect that contributes to anxiety and depression are the use of substances, which can be nicotine, alcohol, or drugs. And because people use these during the time that they're using them, there is a lack of desire to fulfill our primary nourishment. And on top of it, each of those substances has a depletion that's unique to it. So there's a kind of a double dose of depletion. And I'm mentioning this because people often report they have anxiety and depression, yet they don't look at their use of substances and recognize that those are a source of depletion. Another important piece of our wellness is having a connection to whatever is important for you with your spirituality. It isn't one kind of spirituality, but whatever kind works for you. So for one person, it might be looking at the stars or being out on the water, connecting through specific music or lighting candles, sometimes chanting or ceremony, praying, getting together at a sacred location, meditating, or being in nature. There are many ways that we access and utilize spirituality, but engaging in that and using it as a tool in our life is very important. Another important aspect to look at with depression and anxiety are deficiencies. I've mentioned deficiencies in relation to the standard American diet and to the use of substances. There also can be micro deficiencies, and these can occur within the physical body for individual people that aren't related to those things. Some people may be more prone to deficiencies, and these deficiencies can also be caused by some medications. So those are important to look at to help lift out of depression and anxiety. Sleep is one of those things that is critical for our physical and mental health wellness and keeps us on track. There's many ways to address getting good sleep, which include getting to sleep, staying asleep, sleeping deep enough, and not waking too early. There are other areas that contribute to our wellness, and one of those is human touch. Another is plants and animals in our life. Another way that we can work with anxiety and depression is through the use of adaptogen herbs. The approach with adaptogen herbs is very different than the model of taking a pill in the Western sense. So adaptogen herbs help to stabilize. Here's the full circle I just covered, starting with trauma, social connection, exercise, being in nature, meditation, food, gut health, music, substances, spiritual connection, deficiencies, human touch, animals and plants, and adaptogen herbs. Each of these areas is vital for us, and one area cannot be focused on exclusive of the other areas. So, for example, a person cannot take adaptogen herbs and skip changing their nutritional intake and not deal with their trauma. Or it doesn't work to go into nature and get a pet and still eat fast foods or use substances. Each item in the full circle affects all the other areas. When a person changes their food intake, avoids substances, exercises, heals their trauma, and learns meditation, their sleep and mood improve, and this affects and optimizes their happiness, changes their neurochemistry, how their brain and physical being respond and function, which positively impacts all their relationships. Learning meditation and using music and getting good sleep changes how we process and engage, and these also impact all of our other relationships and with our body, mind, emotions, and spirit. The Full Circle program will be available soon, and in it, each of the 15 areas is covered in detail. Each topic is thoroughly covered to implement in your life. You'll get tools, resources, research, exercises, support, links, and connections for working with each component of the Full Circle. You will be contacted when the Full Circle program is available and receive the sign up early discount. So go to twi.education/full-circle. The goal of going beyond depression and anxiety is to give you tools and inspire you to get well. This information is not medical advice. Thanks for listening. Addressing the Body, Mind, Emotions, and Spirit from Transformational Wisdom Institute and Dr. Susan Sophia James.